topic of the day is how to get people to use your process documentation and how to measure if people are engaged with your processes. So that's a topic that comes back very often. We are creating this whole beautiful process library, but how do I make sure that it wasn't a worthless investment and that people are engaging with it and reaping all the benefits that we want out of it? So what kind of benefits? Typically, in a very broad sense, what we are trying to do with Skore is to create a culture of continuous improvements. Whether is it by just making your processes more standardized, by making them faster, cheaper, automation. We want to get in a state where improving the processes on a regular basis is our normal way of working, of operating in an organization. So to create this culture of continuous improvements, and again, this applies perfectly to a system improvement. For example, if we are implementing a new ERP or a new big CRM, that's something you want. You want to create your system and then add the feature, get the feedback from user, and evolve your system over time. So when we speak about engagement, is what happens next. Okay, we created this big library, we documented a lot of processes, and now we expect everyone to use it, but they don't. All right, so there's a clear benefit in having everyone using the same processes, because we can have everyone on the same page and we don't waste time arguing about what is the current process before actually trying to change it, which is another word to say, like, we just try to get everyone to do the same thing. So we are far away from improving it. The people who will also be very well impacted by having an engaged audience are the process owners. To me, in this definition, they are the people making sure that we have enough human and financial resources to execute and improve a process. So the process owners, to me, are the core of doing the work that is necessary to get better engagement from users. And obviously, process editors, business analysts, so typically people joining this kind of drop-in sessions, as well, working with an engaged audience that understands the purpose of the process library, knows that it's useful for the whole organization, is very key to make job super much easier on a daily basis. I have had the experience of working with teams that are keen and that see the benefits of having processes, and it's a day and night difference between teams that are just there. Okay, I've been told to map my processes, but get away as soon as you can, please. What is needed to have process that people could engage with? So there's a couple of criteria here, sort of prerequisites, and then we'll talk about how to make the process more engaging, how to get more engagements from the users themselves. So we talk about it in the drop-in sessions regularly. Everything around making the processes easier to read, having a standard notation, of course, one of the Skore unique value proposition here, but that works for any software really. Having a common platform, making them easier to access, making them searchable, or if not searchable, findable. What I mean is that if I'm looking for something, I can find it. Maybe there's a search engine, maybe there's a clear intranet page where it's clearly documented. So all that are very important attributes or prerequisites to make to engage with users. Second pillar is having a trust. I can trust the process. I know it's up to date. I know it answers my question. It answers my challenges. So someone is in charge. This is essentially what having a published process, single source of truth. I know that someone is in charge of the process. We are not navigating randomly. We are not changing the process every time there's a new project. We are not changing the process every time the manager and middle management is changing. And by the way, we know as well that everyone is following the process. So if I'm not following it, I'm the exception. It's not the norm that the same process is done 10 different ways to do a project or to initiate a campaign. We don't improvise that every time. We don't change the roles and responsibilities, who has the authority on the process every time, depending on the weather or the season. And lastly, which is the most important, and it was all that to drive up, we know that a process can be changed. Okay, and to us at Skore, and from our experience working as consultants with a lot of businesses, this is what makes the key to having an engaged audience, is because we engage with them. we engage with our users in the first place, and in return, they engage with the processes. And this is a key to what we're trying to unlock today, is how this is your role as process owner, as business analyst, as people working on the processes, to engage with your users, and we know that in return we will reap the benefit of the investment we made in a process library. First is making sure the process answers questions and challenges from users. People who want to read a process will have a question. They will go in a process not for the pleasure of reading a process, even though I'm sure some people do, but they will have a challenge. All right, how do we do that? Or who has who should approve this thing? Or how long do we have to do this piece of work before submitting? What's the deadline? What's the common lead time or time frame or SLA that has been agreed? And the only way to do that is to show and share the processes early and often with as many users as you can, because they will tell you what is the last problem they solved, they find and they couldn't solve, or they had to ask 10 different people to solve it. So your process should have all these little answers. I remember way too many processes that were given. I was working for a large organization, and the head office used to give us processes, but they were so high level that they were completely useless, because they were so high level they became quite generic. And as soon as we had a sort of a tricky question on, all right, how do they want us? What's the guideline to approve this kind of projects? It wasn't going in this kind of level of details, and over time we completely lost trust in these templates they were giving us, to the point that we just simply ignored them. Okay, so they were sending us template, and our assumption was that, all right, it will be useless. Let's have a quick look, but we know that half of it will be missing, and that they didn't take the time to answer the hard question, or make the hard, let's say, political decision to say something must be approved by one department or another. So your documentation, to be trusted, needs to be you need to bounce it by users, and does it answer your question? Do you have all the documentation or the additional things you need to execute that? Then, of course, you will reach a point where someone will come up with an idea. We'll say, all right, I think this is okay, but we could do this thing this way. And this is where we enter the change management cycle. And this is where you are actually building the trust and the engagement with your users. All right. If your users know that they are heard and you're listening to them, it can be done in just by them leaving comments on a process, or maybe you have a sort of an inbox for process improvements. I've seen that, a SharePoint site where they can drop things, or directly in Skore as a comments. We also had organizations using creating these events called the WOW dialogue. So they tend to call processes WOWs, ways of working. And these WOW dialogues happen once a quarter, and they were a forum for the team or a group of teams to review a process together, raise all the improvement ideas they had, and essentially they were initiating a process, like logging all the ideas, voting on the priorities. And that worked very well, because everyone had a voice. It was an official meeting. It was dedicated time for that. So that was a great way. And the teams organizing that, taking part in these WOW dialogues, were always by far the most engaged, because they had the discipline of having this quarterly thing. It wasn't a standalone meeting. The first and second time, maybe it was a standalone meeting, but most of the time it was included in their sort of quarterly big team meeting. I can't remember how they called it, but that was sort of a chapter in a longer meeting that they had every quarter. And essentially, they knew that if they were suggesting a change, first thing, it would be considered by the whole team. And also, they wouldn't be told, okay, it's your role to do it, your job to do it. You had this idea, you go and implement it. Okay, because that's the best way to get people to shut up and not say, because usually someone who will be loud and will suggest improvements is someone who is already quite busy, and they will not say idea if they only think, okay, that would just be on me, and I'm just gonna create myself more work. So you create this sense of trust that, okay, we share improvement ideas, we discuss them as a team, and then there's a real process to approve them, to dedicate a team to time and resource to dedicate it to make it happen. This is very important. And the person suggesting the improvement may or may not be the one leading the project, but that definitely shouldn't be automatic. I mean, I've seen too many ideas that or people telling me, okay, I'm telling that to you, but I don't want to tell my boss because he will just tell me to make it happen, and I don't have time for that, which is the last thing you want. Also, ivory tower mentality sometimes kills good ideas by having, okay, we know they don't. It's work to get people to talk and to express their ideas, their continuous improvement, because they lack. A lot of people have never been involved in improving processes, so they lack the vocabulary and the way of talking about saying, okay, how do you position, how do you build sort of a mini business case to say why this change will make a difference. And very often, this was my role to help them put some words on how this change will make a difference, because they would arrive and say, all right, this thing doesn't work. And then, okay, why it doesn't work? Yeah, because, okay, can you tell more? And then we would dig into the problem. We would help them formalize the change, speaking about it with the right wording, the framing it in a way that is much more understandable for other people in the organization, including the management. Because what we want ultimately is that the management, the process owners, dedicate time and resources to an improvement. So our role is to coach people on making that happen. No ivory tower, involve everyone, and also very often not invented here. So if someone comes up with a solution, the working group will invent something else or reject it just because they didn't come up with the idea. So that's a bias that is very good to be conscious of. Good ideas. I think the best idea is when someone has an idea, someone has another, and then we build a third solution together. This is usually how the best things are coming up. So be careful about rejecting flat out things that are not your own creation. And another tip here is don't go into development. What I mean by development is doing all these workshops and things like that to work on a new process or specify a new improvements to a system. Don't even start developing this idea if there's no resources allocated to it. I had two big projects. They were way too big. They could have, I think the scope should have been much smaller in the first place. But also, there was clearly no real, genuine political will to make the solution that we would come up with happen. And essentially, it would have been the same if we had done. We just wasted time, everyone. So if you know that there's no resources, is a quick example. If the development team, you want to evolve your CRM, and the development team is not available to do that, it's not even worth mapping processes and gathering requirements for it. You can do it for fun, maybe do a half an hour or so, but it's not worth deep diving into the change if you know the team is not going to be available before Q2 in 2 years' time. That will make everyone hyper frustrated, and your engagement level with your process platform will just go through the floor. No, people will not be interested at all. And to my point, to continue on this thread, change needs to be implemented. Okay, that's why it's good to do small changes early and often. Like in a CRM, typically you can do the whole, okay, we need a new campaign module that is linking this data and this data, or you can say, all right, we just need a new field on the contact, and do that. If it's just a new field, even if you use it temporarily, that's okay. Just do changes, small changes that shows your users, okay, we've listened to you. We evaluated a number of solutions. There's a big project which is about creating a whole new module in your CRM, and there's a quick and dirty solution that helps us just capturing if someone has been sent an email or not. It's a date field, and that's it. So do changes small and often, even though it's temporary solution. I think that sometimes it's worth it. A lot of companies are scared of doing these kind of little changes, but once you've done a couple, you'll see it quite of feels good. Especially if your users are engaged, and this is where I'm closing my loop. Especially if users are engaged with your processes, they know that things change and that the solution is not permanent. Having a new date field on the contacts in a CRM may be a quick and dirty solution that helps a team moving forward while we wait for the bigger project to be rolled out. So a good metrics to chase is the lead time between the initiation and the deployment. Okay, that could be a good one. When someone posted an idea, either as a comment in Skore platform, as a word dialogue, or any other places you want, and when the change was rolled out, you try to keep that as short as possible, ideally in weeks or months. but not beyond a quarter without good reasons. And so to conclude, my whole point of how to create engagement in a process platform is you as a platform owner, as a platform builder, you should engage early and often with all your users, whoever they are. Talk with them, ask them for their opinion. Don't create more work for them. Just show them that your platform has a value and they'll engage with your process in return, because it will be a no-brainer for them that this is where they can see their processes and their ideas evolving.